This is Made in America with Neil Asbury and Rich Rothman.
A very big welcome to you today. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. Rich, man, we got an incredible show today. Incredible show. Just in a moment, we're going to have Congressman Jordan from the great state of Ohio.
I know. Today's Ohio Day.
Ohio Day.
This is Ohio Day.
Yes, yes. And by the way, just for everybody to know, I was born on University Hospital in Ohio State, right? So that makes me a real Buckeye. You can't be more Ohio than Ohio State and University Hospital and being born there. So that's the great state of Ohio. I love the place, and having two congressmen from this state is absolutely amazing. But not just, they're American congressmen. They're not just Ohio congressmen. They're playing a huge role in our country. And Rich, we usually talk a little bit in the beginning of the show and, have some banter back and forth. But I'm not going to do that this time because we're just going to get right to our first guest, which is Congressman Bill Johnson from Ohio. And his district is the middle and the southeastern part of the state. It goes down to the great town of Ironton on the Ohio River, right across from Huntington, West Virginia, and Ashland, Kentucky, otherwise known as coal country. Coal country, a very important part of our country, very important part of our economy. And Congressman Johnson is with us right now. Congressman, welcome to Made in America.
Well, Rich and Neil, thanks for having me today. I'm very honored to be with you. Important topics you want to talk about.
Yeah. Let's just go right to this soundbite of the week. And unfortunately, it's a pretty sad soundbite, but I got to play it anyway. I got to get your response to this. This is Secretary of Energy, Secretary Granholm this week, talking about energy prices.
What is the Granholm plan to increase oil production in America?
Oh my God, that is hilarious. Would that I had the magic wand on this. Oil is a global market. It is controlled by a cartel. That cartel is called OPEC, and they made a decision yesterday that they were not going to increase beyond what they were already planning.
Congressman, this is straight out of a horror film on Halloween. I mean, that laugh, that whole thing, just how she's treating the American people and her position. Heating fuel this winter is going to be through the roof. It's going to be terrible. People are going to really, really struggle. And she's sitting there laughing about it. I can't believe it.
Yeah, how disrespectful to the American people. First of all, she didn't even answer the question that she was asked, because she was asked, how are we going to increase production in America? That's what she was asked. And it's amazing to me that under the Trump administration, we were producing some 13 million barrels of oil and gas a day. And under the Biden administration, we're now begging OPEC and the Russians to increase production because the administration, including Secretary Granholm, are doing everything that they can to assault and throttle our ability to harvest our own natural gas to heat and fuel America's homes. It is absolutely mind-boggling that they want to do this.
But the sad part is that all of this is self-induced. None of this had to happen. Nobody has to suffer. Nobody has to pay 47% more for fuel right now to get their cars going. Nobody's going to have to make a decision where they're going to fill their car to get to work, or they're going to put food on the table, to feed their family and at the same time heat their home. There's no reason for any of that to be, if you think about it. Energy is the ultimate inflation because everything is touched by energy. So when you think about that, the disingenuous comments coming from this person, who, by the way, I got to ask you this. What is her background in energy? Because I can't find it. Other than the fact she has a car.
Yeah,
and I know she has flashlights.
She's the governor of Michigan.
She was the governor of Michigan. Well, all right, there you go. She understands cold water. But seriously, the most disingenuous commentary coming from this person who is responsible for getting us through the winter. And I don't see any solutions because, you know what? I don't think she has any.
I don't think she has any solutions either. We already know that utility bills are going to be 15+% higher this winter. The price of natural gas is going to be upwards of 50% higher this winter. It is amazing what this administration is doing to try and stifle our ability to generate electricity with one of the cleanest forms of energy on the planet, our own natural gas. And keep in mind, this is not about carbon. That's what they want everybody to believe. This is not about climate change. It is not about carbon. It is about controlling the lives of the American people. That's what this is all about. If they can keep the American people down, and this is punishment to middle-class America and red America for our belief in fossil fuels, coal, oil, and gas, if they can keep people off balance and fearful, then they're easier to control. At least that's the theory of these liberal Democrats like the Biden administration. So it's an atrocity to the American people.
I mean, that's really scary stuff. And Congressman, this also leads obviously to what? Inflation. And we haven't seen inflation like this for the last 30 years. What is it up over on an annualized basis, over 6% in October? I'm getting telegraphed right now, reading reports that could be 9 to 10% in November on an annualized basis. And, talk about a tax that's hurting and hitting the American people. And a lot of this is really coming from energy costs. But it's not just energy. I mean, look at our food costs. Look at just everything. We talk about supply chain. We'll talk about that in a minute. But just energy and food, inflation. I mean, there's no end in sight, is there, Congressman?
No, there's not. Not under this administration. They don't seem to have any idea how to go about solving this problem. If they did, they would simply get out of the way, reverse these egregious policies, back off of this Green New Deal, the Clean Electricity Performance Program, the methane tax, all of the assault on fossil fuels. They would back off because, at the end of the day, energy security is national security. I mean, it has a very, very direct national security implication. And energy policy is national security policy, both here on the domestic front and internationally. Because you just, I can't tell by your voices which one of you said it, but you're talking about inflation and the rising prices. The cost of energy is causing things at the grocery store to go up. It's causing gas at the gas pump to go up. You name it. The products on the shelves. I mean, it's going to be a bleak Christmas for millions of Americans because of the skyrocketing price and inflation.
Well, I mean, one area that's going to do really well, particularly in the Midwest, is that people are going to be buying scarves. So a lot of scarves are going to be given away at Christmas. I mean, it's the Biden plan, scarves, jackets, and so forth. As you take your thermostat, and I'm from upstate New York, by the way, so I can relate to that. Take your thermostat and drop it down into the upper 60s. That's like being frozen out when you're living in climes that have 10 degrees, and sometimes we were minus degrees where we were. Hey, listen, I have to ask this question then. So who really benefits from this? You just touched on that for a second, and you said energy is national security. And you're 100% correct, Congressman. Energy means that we can have manufacturing. Energy means that we can grow our population. Energy means that we can have research and development. Energy touches everything in the world, but if we play with that, if we switch to the new Green Deal, which is what he's really moved over far. He's so far to the left. It's incredible right now. Who benefits? It's Russia's going to benefit. OPEC's going to benefit. Iran's going to benefit. Venezuela's going to benefit. And if we have to use windmills and we have to use solar panels, who benefits from? And it's China. So it seems to me that all the bad guys, all the bad players in the world will benefit, as the average American is going to pay the bill to the bad guys. What a ridiculous use of our funds and our taxpayers' money.
You are exactly right. You are exactly right. The goal of this Green New Deal and this carbon-free economy that the Biden administration is streaking toward a carbon-free economy by 2035. Let's assume for a second that we accomplish that. No gasoline, no diesel, no airplanes flying on jet fuel over America, no oil and gas heating our homes. Everything is carbon-free. Let's assume for 1 second that we've done that. We can't, by the way, but let's assume that we did. Do you know what the United Nations, not Bill Johnson, not the federal government, not Congress, but the United Nations climate analysis themselves, they said that if America were to achieve this goal, it will cool the earth. It will reduce the temperature of the globe 0.137 degrees Celsius 80 years from now. We will all be dead when we reduce the temperature of the globe 0.137 degrees Celsius 80 years from now. All the while, China, Russia, India, North Korea, Iran, Venezuela, all of those countries that you mentioned, their economies are flourishing because guess what they're using for energy? They're using fossil fuels, oil and gas and coal.
Congressman, we've got to take a quick break. We're on together with Congressman Bill Johnson from the great state of Ohio, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman and myself, Neil Asbury. We're going to be back in just a moment. You don't want to miss it. Still much more to come. Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. And boy, we are having a charged up, passionate, amped up discussion here today with Congressman Bill Johnson from Ohio. Congressman, I'd like to get your comments. We're talking about the Green New Deal and climate change and all of that. Here's a soundbite from Nigel Farage this week, a former MP from the UK.
Led the Brexit.
He led the Brexit.
Very
I mean,
important.
yeah, he's very articulate. He's got a really great sense of humor, and he's very witty. And let's listen to what he just had to say this week.
Well, I think the truth of it is that ever since the Afghanistan withdrawal, done without any consultation with your long-term allies, America's reputation is frankly down the tubes. Right. And I think Biden looks posturing, ineffectual, and I'm sure Boris Johnson, who's chairing this, is pleased that Biden's there because he's gone absolutely crazy on this green agenda. But frankly, most people seeing this will know, what is the point of us closing down industries, putting up everyone's fuel bills at home if India, China and Russia aren't going to play the game?
And Congressman, I mean, they weren't there at this big global conference on climate change. The people who you need at the table, they're saying, I think India said, hey, look, you know, we're kind of thinking 2070 right now for us to kind of come into compliance. Talk about not being around anymore. So, Congressman, what do you think?
What amazes me the most, the Trump administration withdrew us from the Paris Climate Agreement. America has done far more than our fair share of carbon emission reductions. Because if you look at the goals that were established in the Paris Climate Agreement for all the original signatory countries, America is the only one that has exceeded the goals that were set for us, in spite of the fact that we withdrew from the agreement. We didn't withdraw from the agreement because we don't believe being good stewards of the environment and protecting our planet is important. We withdrew because we don't believe that it's fair to ask the American taxpayers to pay for what China and Russia and North Korea and India and other countries like that refuse to pay for. They're not doing their part. But there is no country on the planet that has reduced carbon emissions more than the United States has. And I think it's disingenuous for this administration to go overseas to COP26 and any other place and at forums like that and put Americans on the line to do what other countries refuse to do. I mean, look at what's happened in Europe. Look at what's going on with them this winter. They are heading for an extremely brutal cold winter, and they're screaming at Brussels to help them figure out how to deal with this. Do we want that same kind of thing here in the United States? Apparently, the Biden administration does.
Well, also, what's interesting is that the wind has not been blowing. This is no joke. This is serious. The wind has not been blowing well in the European environment. This is true. And therefore, the windmills have not been functioning the way they had intended them. You know, the unintended consequences of a Green New Deal. So therefore, you're right. They are completely bereft. They are really in big trouble when it comes to heating their homes. They don't have the electrical ability to do that. Now, what's also very, very bad, going back to your concept about national security, the fact that Russia is able to provide, natural gas to them as opposed to us, because we were doing that. It goes to Russia. Their natural gas is not as clean as our natural gas, and they're providing and they're working with Russia, who then turns around and leverages them politically to get what they want. This is such a bad deal. It's not a Green New Deal. It's a green bad deal because it allows the political leverage that we had as a result of becoming net exporters of energy to challenge Russia in the one socioeconomic that worked for them, and now we provided it back to them thanks to the Biden administration.
And going through a pipeline, by the way, that comes from Russia to
exactly
Europe, with American technology and American funding, but we can't do that in our country.
I mean,
Congressman,
that's outrageous.
Untangle that.
It is outrageous, and a lot of people don't realize Russia gets 50% of its tax revenue. 50% of its revenue from the sale of oil and gas. 70% of that resource goes through pipelines that go under the country of the Ukraine. Anybody that thinks that the Russians want the Ukrainian people and they want to take care of the Ukrainian people, that's not what they're after, folks. They're after the nation, the land of the Ukraine, because that's where all of their pipelines run through. And 80% of that resource, as you guys just pointed out, goes to our friends and allies, countries in Europe that America is funding through NATO to take care of. For crying out loud, can't anybody see the logic in this inside the Biden administration?
Yeah, unbelievable. And but unfortunately, Congressman, we're going to have to end it there. But the hypocrisy, and I just got to say, as we're summing this up, and for Congressman Johnson's district, it's coal country down there in Ironton and in southern Ohio along the Ohio River, across the river, and Kentucky and West Virginia and Pennsylvania. These jobs, there's some very, very great jobs at stake, and just throughout the whole energy industry in our country. I mean, we're talking about great paying jobs, great benefits, and we're talking about wiping those jobs out of our economy. And for what? For what? For nothing. And something that we need as a country to be competitive. We're just destroying jobs, and we're destroying our economy for no reason whatsoever. Congressman Johnson, thanks for being on our show. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
Folks, we've been together with Congressman Bill Johnson from Ohio, really in our government, especially for the people in his district, which includes southeastern Ohio, the great town of Ironton along the Ohio River, a really important part of our country. I mean, a lot of our energy comes from there, a big topic that we talked about today. So important to our economy, so important to our jobs. Congressman, thanks for being with us today. Folks, stay with us. Co-host Dr. Rich Rothman and I are going to talk about the vaccine mandates. This is a really, really big topic, and Dr. Rich and I look forward to talking about it with you.
Promoting American industry. This is Made in America with Neil Asbury and Rich Rothman.
Welcome back to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. So, Rich, we're going to talk about vaccine mandates and how they impact the workplace. And this is becoming quite an issue. You know, can you work if you don't get the vaccine? And, a lot of people have a lot of misgivings about the vaccines. And should we respect that? Or should we respect what some people call the greater good, and that it's your obligation to your fellow workers that you get vaccinated? Though you may very much distrust the vaccine, your lifestyle, your religious beliefs, just, your own body and who has governance over your own body. And then the other issue is, who should enforce this? And so we have the White House this week saying that OSHA should enforce it. It's part of the Department of Labor, and it's the folks that goes around to factories primarily. I got a lot of OSHA folks visiting my factories and just looking for worker safety. Like, you got big machines that you're operating machines, and are they safe? Do you have all of the safety equipments and medical supplies and everything there that should someone get hurt, God forbid? Are you, is there protections? Is it, very noisy machines? Are you protecting people with headphones and different things? Or
that was the basic idea originally. That was the idea originally.
This is what it was for.
Ramps,
as industrial...
ramps for the handicapped, railings to hold on so people don't fall. It was for things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the ADA, the American Disabilities Act. OSHA was basically the folks working in a factory, making sure they're safe. And I mean, this comes from, the Industrial Revolution back in the 40s and 50s, and a lot of these pieces of equipment were just unsafe, and
right.
People weren't trained properly. And let me tell you now, I mean, they're all over it. Our factories are very safe, I got to tell you. And, you have this regulation, and let me tell you, you don't have a safe place to work. How are you going to attract people to work? You're not going to attract great people to your facilities if you're running unsafe production plants. So therefore, it's in the interest of everybody to invest in safety. But should we be using OSHA, who's protecting the American worker, for these type of things, and now use them as the sort of police force, Rich, to enforce the vaccine mandate? So let's listen to the Deputy Press Secretary of the White House this week defending OSHA to enforce the vaccine mandate.
The administration clearly has the authority to protect workers, and actions announced by the president are designed to save lives and stop the spread of COVID-19. And as DOJ said, they will be defending these lawsuits. But I also want to step back for a second, because there is precedence here. The Department of Labor has a responsibility to keep workers safe and the legal authority to do so. The Congress empowered OSHA through a law that has been in the books for more than 50 years.
More than 50 years, that's right, because it was a very different law. The law was not meant for this. It was meant for something very different at a very different point in history.
As usual, the Democrats are playing with words. They twist words, so they take words out of context. Listen, evidently, a lot of people don't agree with them, because there are a lot of lawsuits out there. Let me just give you the list right now. Georgia, South Carolina, West Virginia, Utah, Idaho, Alabama, Kansas, Missouri. I said that on purpose, by the way, because I got corrected once. Sort of like Louisville. Alaska, Arkansas, Iowa, Montana, Nebraska, New Hampshire, South Dakota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, and Texas separately. Florida's playing with it. They're going to be part of the pushback. And it doesn't stop there. So evidently, there are quite a few states, Neil, that just don't agree that they're not going to go along with the mandate. Listen, if you think about this, we are telling people that they cannot come to work. You can't come here. You can't have your job. You can't have an income if you're not getting the jab, if you're not getting a shot. Just unbelievably incredible. But Neil, if you think about that, you're a manufacturer, right? People who have manufacturing plants, 100 people or above, can be fined pretty heavily now, can't they?
Oh, it's thousands of dollars.
It's thousands of dollars.
Tens of thousands of dollars.
That's right. It's a lot of money. So what you're doing is
for companies with more than 100 employees.
More than 100 employees.
So I mean,
that's a lot of SMEs out there.
There's a lot of companies. I mean, it's a vast majority of our entrepreneurial. A lot of our entrepreneurs, small businesses, and so forth. 100 employees is really capturing many. That's in a huge part of our economy. So right now, as I fall in that category, I just don't know what to do. I mean, do we start getting ready for it? I mean, how do we get ready for it? How many people? Because hey, look. It's as a company, as an owner, you can't ask for people's health records, or you can't ask for things that are very personal. You shouldn't be able to ask. You can't ask. It's against labor law to ask.
Used to be against labor law.
So now what we got to go and start getting into people's medical records, and we got to start divining. Do they have the vaccine or not vaccine, or what kind of vaccine do they have? Is it legitimate? Do they have the right documentation? Do they not have the documentation? Do you take their word for it? Do you not take their word for it? And the consequences are huge. It's not only the fines and all of that, but it's just being able to operate your business, right? You operate your business. Can you operate your business when you get like 25 or 30% of your workforce now all of a sudden, you don't have access to, they're gone for whatever reason, they're not there anymore. What do you do about that? I mean, how do you do that? Now you're already starting to see in the airlines. Look at all the flight cancellations and look at all of that. Our ports. Our ports are already so backed up. How many of the people working, the longshoremen now is not going to be coming to the job? How many of our policemen? How many of our first responders?
Well, that's exactly the point.
Are not going to be there anymore.
That's exactly the point. Because if you think about it, if this is going to affect, we already know this, firefighters have quit en masse, cops have quit en masse, EMTs have quit en masse.
And Rich, if you look at the numbers today, the numbers are very, very low. I mean, as far as new cases and how many people are hospitalized.
Right.
And this is supposed to be the time.
Because we're beyond it.
This is supposed to be flu season, right? And this is when you're going to have a surge in November and December. But that surge of the Delta variant hasn't happened. But, Rich, we're going to get right back to this because it's a very important topic. Still a lot more to talk about today. Stay with us. Dr. Rich Rothman and myself will be back just in a moment. We're very glad to have you with us today. I'm Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. So, Rich, just to kind of follow up and kind of put some closure, it's not closure because it's going to be going on for a while, but OSHA implementing the vaccine mandate. What a concept. But the beloved governor from the great state of Florida, DeSantis, said, well, he's going to kick OSHA out of the state of Florida.
You got to love him.
It's amazing.
This is just amazing.
He's like, whatever everybody else is doing, and he ups it, and we're going to kick OSHA.
Well, there are a couple of governors that are great. Noem up in South Dakota. We have DeSantis right here in Florida, and then you got Abbott, who's saying, all right, so the feds aren't going to do the border. We're going to do the border. They've arrested so far and captured 76,000, illegal aliens in the last few weeks. And they're closing down the border on their own because no one else is doing it. So he's got to do it. It's just amazing people who are standing up. The pushback on this whole scenario, Neil, is incredible. And it's the start of something.
So we're gonna pivot here to another topic, the economy. The economy, and just inflation and what does it mean? And we're talking about inflation rates, the highest we've seen in the last 30 years. We're going to be talking about the misery index here very soon as well. That's something during the Carter administration where you had unemployment and interest rates, and you had inflation, all skyrocketing at the same time. And, let's kind of see where that goes. But Kevin Hassett was a former, he is a former senior advisor to President Trump. And by the way, we've been doing radio for a number of years, and Kevin has been on our radio show a few times in the past when he was at the, I believe it was the Heritage Foundation. He was an economist.
We had a lot of folks from them. It was also the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors.
Right.
For the Trump administration.
So, we
he
know
had
Kevin,
a lot of clout.
We know Kevin back when, and when he was, he of course he went on to a really great career in becoming a senior advisor to the President of the United States. It doesn't get much better than that. But this is a soundbite from Kevin this week, and he uses this word econocide. Econocide. President Biden is committing econocide.
New term.
A new term. Let's listen to this.
I think of the right word for what Biden's doing. Bidenomics is not negative enough. He's really doing econocide. He's got a demand stimulus that's as big as we've ever seen, and then he's whacking the heck out of supply. He's regulating firms, promising big tax hikes. We would have the highest marginal tax rate in the whole developed world if they pass those tax hikes. And all that is basically creating all this cash chasing supply, but supply is going down. And so you see inflation. People sort of say, oh, it's looking like the 1970s. I actually think it could be worse than the 1970s. If you look at all these forces, these are policy errors that are unlike anything economists have ever seen.
That's
so
right.
There you go. I mean, there you go. It's like like we haven't seen. And, so one of the things, that he brings up is that, you've printed all of this cash, all this currency, you kind of invented the currency, right? Through quantitative easing.
Right, exactly right.
Keystrokes on a computer.
Thank you, Fed.
You commit all this currency to the economy, and
you flood the market with cash. You flood the market with cash,
right? And it's kind of like you're creating this false demand, this unsustainable demand, and it's like you're not doing really companies any favor, because what happens is you see this demand because all this free money going into the economy on whatever, and this demand now is going out and chasing these products. And there's fewer products to buy because the demand is outstripping the supply. So now you start seeing inflation. Inflation really hurts, right? It's like a tax. You're taxing people. You're not calling it a tax, but that's what it is.
Oh, it's exactly that.
It's taking away money from people. The factories and the people who are providing services believe that their business has reached a new plateau. So all these entrepreneurs, small business owners, people are saying, oh, wow, the demand for our product is so much greater, right? And it really isn't. It's a false demand. It's this demand that's been created because of this, just pumping all this currency into the market. And by the way, when you do that, you're devaluing the currency of everybody's savings account, because why? The devaluation comes in the form of inflation. So, $10,000 doesn't buy what $10,000 used to buy. So you're devaluing people's currencies. And then the entrepreneurs and small businesses are borrowing money to increase their production just to find out that the demand really never existed. And now you got all that expense and, all of these loans and everything. And then when demand kind of gets back to what the more, normalized demand should be, people are in debt. And, they've actually hurt people. And I think that's why Kevin calls it econocide, like suicide. Economy suicide is what you're doing here. And I think he's making a good point.
Well, that's exactly right. And one of the things you've been hearing this whole past week, particularly as these bills were trying to get passed, and one was passed the other day, is that, listen, Biden's saying income is up. The average income for a person is up. What they're not juxtaposing against that is that costs are up. And the cost to buy a product, whether it's steak, whether it's food, whether it's energy, whether it's a car, whether it's an appliance, it doesn't matter what it is, it's eating up the income differential that you thought you're doing so well with. And as you stated before, you're very correct. It will cost you more to buy what you were buying a year ago. And that increase that you think you're getting, it doesn't exist. It's a ghost increase.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a ghost increase. You can see it on Ghost Adventures. Where'd that money go? They're gonna put their green little things on, and they're gonna go look for the ghosted, the ghost increase.
Well, Kevin calls that econocide.
Econocide.
We're committing econocide. Well, Rich, we're going to be back here in just a moment. Still a lot more to cover. Stay with us. Dr. Rich Roffman and Neil Asbury will be right back. Welcome back to Made in America. We're glad you stayed with us. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Roffman. So, Rich, it's always great to, Kevin Hassett, we just heard from him just a short while ago, an economicide. We're committing economicide. Another person who's been on our show a few times, Larry Kudlow, a senior advisor to President Trump. And when he was on CNBC, I was on his television show a couple of times. So it's always great to see and hear from the folks that has made a big impression on us and made a big impression on our show. Let's listen to what Larry had to say this week.
70% of business taxes are borne by the blue-collar middle class. And you'll see it in lower real wages, lower employment, and lower family incomes. They are the ones that pay the taxes.
You know, he's absolutely right. And, you know, in this reconciliation bill, you know, they're going to have to pay for it somehow. And I think it's all smoke, screen, and mirrors. I mean, that's what Senator Manchin is saying. He says it's not real. The money that they're trying to, and they're saying that, oh, well, we're only going to, you know, we're going to raise money for 10 years to pay for 3 years of the program, expecting the program will continue to, exist for the whole 10 years. So therefore, they're really not calculating that. It'll be interesting to see, you know, when they, look at the cost of this and the
scoring.
The scoring of this.
Right.
It'll be amazing to see that, you know, they haven't got this funded. And part of it is they're going to sick how many IRS agents on everyday Americans?
87,000 new agents.
Just to go after Americans and to look
They're
at
not
everything?
going after the corporations because the large corporations don't have to worry.
Oh, they got lawyers and they got accountants.
They have the biggest law firm and accounting firms in the United States or in the world. They're going after the average American.
But again, Senator Manchin said, there's no way I'm going to go for that. So, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners, I know it because I'm one of them, you know, is very concerned about this tax bill and, you know, who's going to be poking around and, you know, what sort of a witch hunt is going on, you know, to try to find money to fund this. And all of these programs that you see in this, I mean, just these boondoggles and this expense, I just don't. It's not going to happen. I mean, whatever's in that bill, you know, there's already a lot of folks that's opposed to it, and especially, you know, man, we got to pray for Senator Manchin because, you know, he's going to be so important in the next months ahead until we get to the midterms, and then it's going to be a completely different game because Democrats aren't going to be controlling Washington anymore. What do you say?
Well, Manchin, it's interesting to watch him, and I'm still not quite sure where he's going to go on it, but. If you accept what he's saying, which we can do right now, he said he has never in all the years he's been in public office, never has he ever seen a party act the way the Democrats are acting right now. They're asking the congressional folks and the senatorial folks to sign on to a bill they did not want to do the scoring. That's a recent event. Up until last week, there was no scoring in it. Well, just the president said it's for free. It's covered. No one's going to pay more taxes except those over $400,000. And Manchin was mortified by that in his press conference from last week. And he said that. I am mortified. I'm horrified. I can't believe what I'm looking at because I have never seen anybody come up with a bill with thousands of pages, twice the size of the Bible. Now, how many people can read the Bible in 24 hours? I mean, you can't. So he said, I will not go ahead and sign for that. So when Kevin Hassett says we're committing, you know, economicide, and Larry Kudlow says, you know, kill the bill, save the country. Kill the bill, save the country. Kill the bill, save America. They're 100% correct. Now think for a second. What we're doing, if you look at the whole landscape of what's out there, we're going to lose, they're saying, at least 15% of the workforce could be thrown out. Now, they pushed it back to January 4th. But 15% could be thrown out because they don't want to get the jab, for whatever reason. 15%.
I think it's higher because I think.
Well, it can be, and it probably will be.
I think that, you know, there's like 25% of American people hasn't got this.
Neil, imagine you lose 15 to 20% of your workforce. That's a disaster. That's a national crisis. A national crisis. Good luck filling your manufacturing slots that I know you've got and you want to fill up.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of job openings just because, it's just a time in the cycle. But that's before January 4th. And I just don't know how we're going to enforce it. I really don't. I mean, it's not something we've ever done before. Boy, I just hope that the Republican governors succeed in this lawsuit. Rich, unfortunately, we're out of time. But we're going to be back again next week for another adventure of Made in America, where we never stop fighting for your jobs.